I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, he came to my ears and whispered, "Please be easy on me." He thought I'm Mike Tyson and I will follow his script 40 seconds after I broke the clown's jaw. We are boxers, not content creators. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, I didn't want to put him down early. You all know I was handcuffed. I don't want to say anything that I will be regretting in the future, but all I can say now is the first 20 seconds was enough for me to end Jake Paul.
It's like this is the clearest fixed fight you're ever gonna see. Look at this guy holding his hands up and watch. Watch that. He literally shows him his chin, and he goes down. It's so fake. Look at, I mean, he's got nothing. It's like a guy who just learned boxing.
The day after I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on. I remember one thing. I had a very hard moment in that part of my life. But I assure you, in that age, I could have put that clown in the first round, but I sold my soul. And I'm
a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists.
At heavyweight level, things hit different.
That guy did great for someone who's been boxing for like less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember.
The pros saw something that casual fans missed completely. They weren't watching for knockdowns or highlight reels. They were studying footwork and head movement and the exact moment when someone realizes they're in over their head. That look of recognition is what sent chills through locker rooms everywhere, because seasoned fighters know that expression means the safety you thought existed was never really there. When your whole career depends on calculated risks and suddenly the calculations are wrong, that's when panic sets in. Rogan's voice changed because he's witnessed too many fighters cross lines. They can't uncross and he could smell a headline forming before it happened. Behind closed doors, executives weren't caught off guard by this outcome. They war-gamed scenarios much worse than what we saw, which means everything happening now is damage control in real time. Watch their faces stay composed while their teams work overtime, and notice how every explanation takes longer to arrive, because when situations are clean, answers come fast. But when things get complicated, every word gets filtered through legal first. The delays aren't about getting facts straight, they're about getting stories aligned, and when you need time to align stories, that tells you everything.
Oh no, I don't remember the fight that much. I kind of blanked out a little. Listen, know what I remember? Coming back from the first round, and then the next day I remember Jake is doing some kind of, I don't know, what was he doing at the ring?
Oh yeah, a little bow at the end, he bowed.
And that's the last thing I remember. But the day after the fight, right after, the day after, I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on.
What did you think of Jake's power, man, when you were in there?
I don't remember it, but my body was really sore. Yeah, my body, my chest, my stomach and stuff was...
Joshua didn't set out to wreck anyone's plans, but he became a wrecking ball anyway, because he showed up treating this like actual boxing instead of performance art, and that authenticity broke the spell early. When control gets ripped away this fast, the people who built empires on managing every variable start making desperate moves, and desperation never stays quiet for long, so buckle up for the spin cycle, where suddenly everyone remembers being more cautious than they actually were.
He's also nuts, right? Just the fact that he's willing to fight the two-time heavyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist, a guy who's gigantic in his prime, built like a Greek god. And you're gonna stay, and he's a one-punch killer.
Standing up afterwards becomes the whole story, but the real story is what Rogan caught in that moment when marketing promises crashed into physics. Some people will dismiss this as just another boxing injury and move along, but that's missing the point entirely. Context matters here, and this context reeks of manufactured legitimacy that couldn't survive contact with the real thing. When your promotional campaign writes checks, your actual skills can't cash, somebody ends up paying in blood and bone. And right now, everyone's arguing about who picks up the tab. Jake Paul isn't some cartoon villain. He's a product that got pushed past its breaking point, and now everyone's checking warranty coverage.
It's you could only take so much. And at a certain, like that one that he got from Joshua, ooh. Say if you have like a punch card, you have like so many punches that you can get in your life, which I believe you do. I believe there's a certain number. That one was like 10 bunches. That was like, there was a lot of concussions in that one. one punch.
Sure.
That was real damage.
The ripple effects are already spreading through the industry like ice water. Fighters reconsidering offers commissions, asking harder questions. Insurance companies recalculating risk, and all that easy money suddenly doesn't feel so easy anymore. When the gravy train hits turbulence, loyalty goes out the window faster than you'd expect, and those same voices praising the spectacle start keeping their distance real quiet. Like, fans aren't idiots either. They enjoy the show, but they recognize authenticity when they see it, and Joshua delivered the raw, unfiltered version. Once audiences taste that level of realness, the watered-down alternatives lose their appeal, and that terrifies anyone whose business model requires keeping things blurry.
In pain?
Yeah, but
Does it hurt?
it's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two
then-
plates.
4 titanium plates later, and I can't stop wondering about the psychological damage, not just the physical reconstruction. Once you know you can be broken apart, the ring transforms from a stage into a cage, and confidence stops being natural and starts being an act. Fake confidence gets people seriously hurt, and history proves that over and over again with ruthless consistency. Lurking underneath all the public statements is the legal and regulatory nightmare nobody wants to discuss, because commissions hate being embarrassed, and this was embarrassment on a systemic level. Those screws create ripples that spread far beyond one fight, and consequences breed in dark corners where accountability gets negotiated and narratives get scrubbed clean. The conversations that matter aren't happening at press conferences. They're happening in rooms where blame gets distributed and futures get decided, and those meetings determine everything, not the sound bites. Influencer boxing doesn't disappear overnight, but the well just got poisoned, and poisoned wells don't announce themselves with warning signs. They just make everyone sick gradually until nobody drinks anymore. That kind of ending doesn't come with dramatic announcements. It comes with silence, and silence is terrifying when your entire model depends on constant noise. Pay attention to who stops talking first. What sticks isn't the impact itself, it's that moment of collective realization when everyone understood something irreversible just happened. Irreversible moments don't get fixed with public relations, they just sit there getting heavier with time. So yeah, this feels messy and unresolved because that's exactly what it is, messy and still evolving, and until honesty replaces choreography, this story keeps fracturing and fractures spread on their own momentum. Right now, it feels like standing on something that hasn't finished collapsing yet, and I swear there's more coming, something they really don't want connected to this narrative. Maybe after all this settles, there could be another shot at redemption, but redemption requires acknowledging what went wrong first, and I'm not seeing that acknowledgement yet. This ends with commissions and emergency sessions, insurance companies pulling coverage, and a business model bleeding out in public view. So rewind with me, because if you blink, you miss the exact moment reality punched through the script, and everything started screaming. The second authenticity showed up, the system had a meltdown, because when Joshua treated this like any other professional bout, the fantasy shattered completely. That silence after contact was louder than any crowd noise because it carried the weight of, oh god, this is actually real. If you think this was just another knockout, you've already missed the disaster forming in its wake. Every time I watch it back, it gets worse, not better, because this wasn't about someone getting hurt, this was about leverage evaporating in real time. Nobody wants to say what's obvious when situations are straightforward, people communicate fast and clear, but right now, all you hear is static and hedging and carefully crafted statements that say nothing. Ask yourself why truth suddenly can't handle sunlight, who's buying time, who's calling in favors, and what exactly they're terrified will surface next. Here's my take, and yeah, it's uncomfortable. Jake Paul didn't build a boxing career, he built a controlled environment, and controlled environments function perfectly until someone refuses to cooperate. Joshua didn't rebel or make statements, he just behaved like an elite professional fighter, which is absolutely terrifying to a system that survives on exceptions. The moment normal shows up, the experiment dies, and if you're feeling uncomfortable, good, because discomfort means illusions are cracking, and reality is trying to breathe. Everyone keeps chanting about bravery like it's magical armor, but bravery without wisdom equals liability, and networks insure against liability, not against fighters. Don't watch the action, watch the paperwork, because someone signed off on this knowing the skill gap, knowing the risk assessment, knowing the possible outcomes. Approval equals responsibility, but responsibility is being dodged so aggressively you can feel the wind from people running away. Every time they pivot to toughness instead of judgment, another warning flag goes up. Count them, don't look away. The injury matters absolutely, but the precedent is the nuclear component, because once a brand tests itself against elite violence, you can't unsee that ceiling. That ceiling isn't theoretical anymore. It's concrete and someone just hit it head first. Every influencer matchup from now on exists in Joshua's shadow, and that's a long, unforgiving shadow that just stole plausible deniability from promoters who love saying nobody could have predicted this. Yeah, well, now we know, and they're scrambling because tape doesn't lie even when everyone else does. What bothers me most is how predictable this fallout was, not the punch but the panic afterward. Boxing history is littered with moments where entertainment pushed too far and paid the price later. It always follows the same pattern: laughter to curiosity to concern to regret, and guess where we are now? Stuck between concern and regret, while timelines get quietly rewritten. Don't insult my intelligence by calling these people naive. They understand force and damage and risk, which means this gamble was intentional. So tell me who was supposed to lose, because it definitely wasn't supposed to look like this. Time for names, because dancing around it feels dishonest. Anthony Joshua didn't wake up planning to expose anyone, but he did it anyway. Jake Paul didn't wake up planning to become a cautionary tale, but here we are. When I think about Eddie Hearn, Dana White, Joe Rogan commissions, and promoters, I don't see villains, I see adults who knew exactly how sharp these knives were and kept smiling anyway. That's what messes with me, because this wasn't ignorance, this was confidence, and confidence just got punched in the mouth. When Rogan's tone shifted, you could feel it, because he's seen real damage up close. He's talked to fighters after wars, he knows what blank stares mean. That's why his reaction carried more weight than thousands of social media takes. Because when Rogan gets quiet, it's not for content, it's because his brain is running worst case scenarios. The second he spoke differently, everyone watching felt that same cold slide in their stomach. Jake Paul is complicated, and pretending otherwise is lazy, because the guy has courage, ambition, and more intelligence than people credit him with. But courage doesn't equal readiness, and ambition doesn't stop physics. When he stood across from Joshua, he wasn't facing a YouTube character. He was facing a lifetime of violence condensed into muscle memory. Anyone who's boxed knows that gap isn't motivational, it's existential. Joshua didn't look angry in there, and that's the scariest part. He looked normal, focused, professional. That's what shattered the illusion, because if he'd showboated or acted vicious, people could rationalize it. Instead, he just did his job, and when your business model collapses under someone simply doing their job, that reveals the foundation was never solid to begin with. I keep thinking about Eddie Hearn specifically because he understands boxing history better than most, which means he understands how many careers ended because someone blurred entertainment and reality too much. When people like him go measured and careful afterward, that's not strategy, that's calculation. That's someone replaying decades of ghosts and asking which one just woke up again. Commissions don't make noise, but they remember everything. If you think regulators forgot a night that embarrassed the sport, you've never dealt with bureaucracy. Embarrassment sticks, and once it sticks, approvals slow down. Questions multiply, and suddenly the fast lane closes. That affects Jake Paul and legitimate fighters who had nothing to do with this mess. Mike Tyson's name hovering over this makes everything heavier, because Tyson is a living reminder of what happens when entertainment devours fighters whole. When comments about memory loss float by and nobody investigates properly, that's not respect, that's avoidance. And avoidance always comes back with interest, usually when least expected. Fans want to pick sides, but the truth is messier, because you can enjoy spectacle while admitting it crossed lines. I think many fans felt that internal conflict watching Joshua land clean, because part of you thrills to real boxing, and part of you thinks, wait, this wasn't supposed to feel like this. Once that contradiction hits you, don't forget it. Dana White pretending this doesn't affect the UFC is hilarious, because crossover spectacle doesn't exist in isolation. When boxing reminds the world what elite violence actually looks like, it recalibrates expectations everywhere. That means fewer people buying the fantasy that experience gaps don't matter which undercuts influencer-driven hype across all combat sports. Jake Paul probably isn't finished, but he's definitely changed, because confidence after exposure is never the same. Anyone who's fought knows that once you've been properly hurt, your brain rewrites the ring. It gets smaller, louder, closer, and that psychological shift is invisible on social media, but deadly in real exchanges. Promoters stay loyal until math changes, and the math definitely changed here. Risk went up, plausible deniability went down, and once those lines cross, everyone starts pretending they were cautious all along. It's hilarious watching in real time because caution doesn't sell arenas, confidence does. And confidence just took a body shot. I think about the sparring partners and gym people who knew this gap was real, but didn't have microphones. Every gym has voices that warn and get ignored, and those voices probably feel sick right now, not vindicated, because being right about danger doesn't feel good when someone actually gets hurt. Media plays innocent, but thumbnails tell the truth because outrage sells until it scares advertisers, and fear is bad for business. Watch how coverage shifts from hype to concern to distance, because that pattern is predictable, and it's already happening whether people admit it or not. Anthony Joshua moves on because elite fighters always do, but this moment sticks to his legacy strangely, not as cruelty, but as exposure. He accidentally became the measuring stick that ended the debate, and being the end of a debate carries weight whether you asked for it or not. What bothers me is people saying this was inevitable, like that excuses anything. Inevitability doesn't erase responsibility, and plenty of smart people signed off on this knowing the odds, knowing the worst case and betting anyway. That's not fate, that's choice. Boxing never forgets moments like this. It buries them temporarily, then drags them back out when someone makes similar mistakes. Years from now, this fight gets referenced quietly in offices as the reason deals fall apart, even if fans barely remember detail. Jake Paul's brand was built on control timing and narrative dominance. Joshua took that away in under 60 seconds, and once narrative control is gone, everything else feels shakier. Now Jake isn't selling potential, he's selling recovery, and recovery stories are harder to market without sounding desperate. Text messages between promoters, managers, and fighters right now will never be public, and those messages are colder than anything said on camera because private conversations don't need spin. I guarantee some of them say we can't risk that again, not with him, not like that. This doesn't kill influencer boxing, but it matures it brutally because you can't pretend experience gaps are cosmetic anymore. Once that truth gets accepted, the matchmaking pool shrinks, and shrinking pools mean fewer events, fewer headlines, less noise overall. As both fan and human, it leaves me uneasy, not excited, because the excitement came from pretending the line wasn't real. Now the line is sharp and visible lines change behavior. When behavior changes, industries follow slowly at first, then all at once, and this feels like the slow part right before the snap.